Welcome to the show. As usual, I bring on the best guests I can for you listeners. I got another young entrepreneur, really a rising star in the world, at least in the world that we in our circles. He's just absolutely been crushing it. He's a top salesman inside of Apex. He's got some other ventures which we're gonna dig into as well. Welcome to the show, my man Blake Presson. What's happening, brother? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate you for giving me the invite on here.
Yeah, man. And we were saying to you quickly off air, I've been really digging like having younger entrepreneurs with a different point of view and just showing the world because I think there's a lot of misconception that goes on about some of the younger generation. And yeah, if you turned on the news, you'd think the younger generation's a bunch of idiots. But the truth is, thankfully in our circles, we're surrounded by some absolute killers, man. And I've enjoyed watching your growth as someone who's been in the network, and obviously, I'm looking at you from a different perspective because you're not technically in our network, but you're basically a big part of what's going on. And, seeing the young nucleus that you guys have going on over there has been kind of special to watch. And I really enjoy having you guys on. I've had a couple of you on already, and I just love talking to you, hearing your insights and talking to you about your hustle. So maybe give everybody a little bit of a background, like who you are, what you're all about, how you came up. We'll dig deeper.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I definitely agree that a lot of the people my age, because I'm 23. A lot of people to my age, we get a bad rep. A lot of people are partying, they're drinking, they're just holding minimum wage jobs right out of college. But a little bit about me, I'm originally from California. I know you're from New York, polar opposites from the
West
U.S.
Coast, bitch.
The West Coast, West Coast, West Coast. But I grew up out there, and I left it when I was 18, right after high school, right after I graduated. I packed up all my bags, and I decided to make a new life for myself out here in Texas. And pretty much, I just kind of wanted to get away and really just start fresh because I also had some family out here, but I just really wanted to reset. And I went to school up at University of North Texas. Just my idea was to pursue law, some sort of law, either law enforcement or pursue becoming a lawyer, something along those lines that just always had my interest. And then back in July of 2021, that's when I started here at Apex. That's kind of when I started diving into the world of business. My buddy Zach, who was also on this podcast earlier, I was listening to that earlier this morning. We were roommates in college, and he started working here a few years prior to me joining, and he was looking to build a team, and I just said, why not? I'll give this Apex thing a try. I'll see what it's all about. Have a little college job, get some extra money for beer and for my rent while I was in college, and 2 years later, I'm still sticking around, and I'm one of the top sales producers over here. I've started to build my own business on the side. I run a moving company in Dallas. I also do door to door with roofing and solar. Then I crush it here with consulting sales. So that's
Pretty
that's
dope,
just a
man.
little bit about me. I'm also a college graduate, and I'm just here to learn and give value back any way I can to anyone that crosses my path.
Yeah, and I've been noticing that you've been doing that a lot, and I know that's kind of part of the operations is, posting and getting into posting, but it's one thing when somebody does the bare minimum because it's kind of required or asked of them, and it's another when you really dive into it and not only are you putting out posts that are super valuable, but you're connecting with a lot of people and even at a young age giving a lot of tutelage to people who maybe age really doesn't play a factor to me at all, because if you have knowledge in an area that I don't have knowledge, I want to pull my seat up and learn, and I think a lot of people in our circles feel the same way. And so when you're providing a lot of value and adding to the group and adding just on your personal page, because I see a lot of your stuff, it's pretty remarkable to watch. I mean, honestly, it's impressive because I know when I was 20 something years old, I was on the fucking balls of my ass and I was selling drugs and I was doing dumb shit. And so I watched so many of you and it's like, man, it's inspiring. It really is, because I didn't have that around me, and that's probably part of the reason why I ended up the way that I did. Like, and similar for you, right? Like you had friendship with Zach, and Zach got into these circles, and it's like, so it really does come down to who you surround yourself with. And if those people are elevating, the people around you are going to elevate. You guys have a bunch of young guys that are really hungry right now that are crushing it. And so
Mhm.
there's got to be a little bit of, there's definitely camaraderie being built, but there's also a little bit of friendly competition because you guys are all this young core of people. It's like you push each other to be better and better and better every single day. And I really enjoy watching it, man.
Exactly, man. And, I might be 23, I might be young, but, just being in this circle of, Ryan's in the office every day and having, all these people come through and, listening to the conversations, having those trainings, those one-on-ones with Ryan, with other people, who have done exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm picking up stuff every single day. I'm learning something new every single day. And I have plenty of notebooks sitting around my desk, and I'll go through them and reread through some of the notes that I've jotted down over the months, over the years. And that's kind of where I formulate some of those ideas that I put out online, that I put out on the groups, that I put out on my own personal pages. And I'm actually in the process of writing my own book. It's not too far along yet, but I'm getting in the process of mapping out all those chapters that I really want to really dive into. And I don't want to copy Zach's book because we're the same age, we're doing the same type of stuff, but I want to give a new perspective on moving away from everything that you knew, that you grew up in, over in California for 18 years of my life. And because I'm sure that there's many kids who are also dealing with something along those lines, or maybe they don't know, maybe they're going to college and they don't know if it's right for them and they want to branch out into the business world and starting their own business. So I feel that I have a lot of experiences and knowledge that I could share with people who may be struggling with, almost like an identity crisis. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and my vision on what I'm trying to do for the next couple months within 2023.
Yeah, that's what's up. I just finished my final edits on my book, and what I'll say is I struggled a lot. It took me longer than it should have because I was even working with an editor, and part of that was a little bit of imposter syndrome. Because it's
Mhm.
easy for us to get in our side of our own heads, and like you look across, and the thing is, the awakening that I had was talking with other people, and what I mean by that is, it's easy for us because when I say easy, we're in this circle of people that everybody's writing books. Everybody's starting, not everybody, but a good number of people are writing best-selling books and they have podcasts. And it seems so normal when you're inside that environment, right? Which is why we all push to be better and better and better. When you step outside of our circle and some of the normal, quote unquote normal circles, and you start talking to like regular people, and I've had multiple conversations with people where I'm like, yeah, like I was at a business meeting right before this show. And I had said to the guy, I go, yeah, I got podcasts and I'm recording. He's like, you got a podcast? I'm like, yeah, I got a podcast. I'm like, we started talking a little more. I'm like, I just finished up my book. Like it should be coming out next month. And he's looking at me with a sideways eye, like it's an abnormality. And it is to normal people. People don't just start podcasts. People don't just write books. And so for you, and just from my perspective, even if you're writing a book similar to Zach, and even if you guys are the same age, the truth is your story is your story, bro. And you're taking a different angle. You just need to get down and just write that bitch. Like you got a lot of insight. And we haven't spent a ton of time, but we've had conversations and I've seen a lot of the stuff you're doing, bro. You're a smart guy. You have a lot to offer some of the generation that and people that are not doing the things that we're doing. It feels normal. So it's so easy for us to kind of ease off the throttle. I've had it happen to me a couple of times where I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm worthy or I don't know, like these stupid ass stories I tell myself. And then like even posting, it's like people post about that all the time, but yeah, but normal people don't see the type of stuff that we're doing. So, I think that's great that you're doing it. You definitely need to follow through on that and knock that out of the park. What kind of started that? Like, what was your reasoning? Is it the same reason I'm talking about where like you see everybody, it's like, fuck, man, I gotta get into this. I got a story to tell. I could definitely tell it.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a little bit of that, but it's also just kind of something that's been eating away at me for a little bit. I feel that I wasn't ready, at the beginning of the year. I still had some things that I needed to cross off the list. I still needed to break $1 million in sales, which I did at the beginning of the year. And I feel like that's a pretty big milestone, especially within, the business world, crossing that $1 million plateau. So I feel like I just needed to hit a few things before I really started thinking about, is this the right, move that I need to do? And I do feel that I'm at that point where, I feel my story is at that point where other people can benefit from, learning from what I've done.
Right.
My mistakes, my successes, the things that I'm still, working towards, and that type of deal. So, all those things really have really come into fruition.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so, I know with the sales and everything, so how did that kind of transfer into moving company and door not like, is it all, did one thing happen before the other? Like, or is there a transition phase where you're like, wow, I'm doing this and it allows me the ability to go do that? Or were you doing one before the other? Like, how'd that transition happen?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So in Apex, we got about 2,000 people. Actually, we're at 2,100 people now. We've we've had a lot
Crazy.
of people join recently, and
Hmm.
it's a growing movement, definitely.
For sure.
But I don't know if you're aware, but we actually do have quite a few movers in Apex, and a lot of them absolutely crush it. Like John Ruff, he's one example who I've actually gotten really close with over the past few months. He's
Hmm.
poured in a lot of stuff to me, and I'm really grateful for it. But just learning from all of these entrepreneurs who have a business on autopilot, they don't really need to be doing the day to day. I've learned a lot of stuff from them, and I put that into my own business model. I have a partner, and we put it into our own business model where I was in a fraternity for 3 years in college. So I have all these young kids who want some extra beer money, who are exactly like me, who want some extra beer money, who want to, start traveling with their friends and, you know, pick up a cool little summer job or a cool little job during the school year to make some extra money. And, I have this labor pool of, clean cut kids, of kids who are going to respect your property like it's their own, or it's like their parents. And, they're going to give you that peace of mind. So it was kind of like a no brainer to me where we have this nice labor pool of 20, 30 kids. So I already have 20 employees, and I know how to work social media. I know how to start getting leads. I know how to build a website, and we have people who can help me build websites in Apex. So it just got
Sure.
this machine kind of built up and running. And I really don't have to go spend time doing these moves. I have, again, a labor pool to do those. So it's really paid off being in a room like Apex where I can delegate everything. I don't have really a role except for booking the trucks, booking the appointments, and sending them off to my boys. And they're making pretty good money. I treat them well, and they love it. They're going down to Austin tomorrow actually for a long distance move, and I'm paying for their hotel. I'm paying four or 500 bucks each. What 19-year-old doesn't love that?
For real.
So yeah, so it's I've definitely learned a ton from all these entrepreneurs and just being in the room. That's what it's all about.
I couldn't agree more. And for people listening, it's so impactful being a part of a mastermind and how important it is to join. And I talk a lot about like I joined one. My first one was like 5 or 6 years ago, and I was in the Lions Den. The impact of the mastermind itself is amazing. But what really ends up happening is you start creating these connections inside and networking with people, and you realize like the sky is really the limit. We put, I think as a younger adult for me, I mean, maybe a little different for you because you're still in that young age bracket, but it doesn't matter. It's like finding that group of people to hang out with that help elevate your game and not only help elevate your game, but now that you're in a position where you're running your own business, you have those people that you can go to, that you can rely on. And that's the power of networks, tapping into the network. We talk a lot about this inside of our groups. I talk a lot about it, like, yo, tap into this network. Like, what did you pay to be here for? You didn't pay to come here just to sit here and read everybody else's posts. Like, tap in, dude. Don't be afraid to post and ask a question. Come in here, connect with somebody, shoot me a DM. Like I tell people all the time, all my messages, it's like, yo, if you have any questions, shoot me a DM. Do I have all the answers? No, but I've tapped in enough to the network that I could probably put you in front of the person that has the answer for the thing that you need. And so the power of that group is amazing. And look at what it allows you to do in your life. You can put yourself in front of the right people at the right times and really helps elevate your life. So, kudos to you too, bro. Cause some people can come in and do the job. Clearly it's not just a job, because you guys are living by those core values and all those things. That's why I love how, he always talks about the culture inside the group, and there's been some shakeups and there's been some things, but that's business 101. Those things happen. It's and in reality, I've talked to a couple of people about Apex from my perspective is like Yeah, he's been doing this stuff a long time, but like it's really taken off only in a short amount of time, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. And so there's growing pains just like any other business. But at the same time, there's still aces inside that group. People are just don't care, will give you their time, especially when they know they're a guy like you who comes in serious and is like, look, I'm willing to listen. My ears are open. I have questions. I'm not going to talk over you. I'm going to be respectful, and just learn as much as I can, absorb as much as I can. And you're on the other side. So you get to shake hands and meet people from all different industries. So, I would like you to talk about that, not just the culture there, but in general, like how much of what you're learning there are you able to carry into what you're doing, in your personal life also, like your personal life and your business. I'm always curious to see what that looks like also.
Yeah, no, that's actually cool that you mentioned that and brought that up. So every morning we have a morning meeting and we go over our KPIs on, how many calls we made, how many outreaches we made, sales, money, all that stuff. And, at the beginning of each meeting, Jose, our CEO, or Mariana, whichever one is running the meeting for that day, they'll go through the room and, they'll randomly pick out 4 or 5 people and they'll be like, "Hey, what's the mission statement? What is the first core value? Rise or of rise. What does responsibility mean to you? Oh, well, we make no excuses. How do you apply that to your personal life? So we'll go around the circle and again pick out 4 or 5 people, and they'll explain every single morning how they, put that core value into use, not only in their workplace, but outside of the workplace. So, to answer your question, we all live by those core values of rise, responsibility, integrity, service, and excellence. And, we wouldn't be here if we didn't live by those core values. We wouldn't be having all these other, things outside of Apex if we weren't living by these core values. And, we're a reflection of this company, but we're also a reflection of, you know, of ourselves. Like I don't want to be known as just some loser who's, partying and drinking and, blowing all of his money and not being smart if I'm preaching that online. I have a persona online who I want to live up to. And, we have a lot of people in the DFW area, and I wouldn't be surprised if I run into them and I don't even know them. I want to be on my best behavior at all times, and I want to again represent what winning looks like at all times because I'm a reflection of what this mission really is, and I want to encourage others to live up to those expectations. That's why I preach it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, and it rubs off on the people in the group too. I mean, I've said to people like I don't care if I'm going to the corner store. Like I always go out looking as presentable as possible. Obviously, I don't get, take a crazy shower to go around the corner, but I'll put on a pair of jeans and I'll make sure I look presentable and I don't look like a schlub and I'm not wearing my pajamas out to the store. Like I take pride in making sure because you never know who you're gonna bump into. You never know what hand you're gonna shake, and that might be the hand that's gonna take you to the next level. So if I'm showing up and I'm in slippers and like I see a lot of people around my neighborhood, it's like you're walking around and slippers and fleece pants, like, good on you. I'm not judging people, but at the end of the day, like you said, what does winning look like? Showing up as a winner all the time and looking the part and not just talking about it. Like I couldn't do all the posting that I'm doing every single day talking about this and that and this struggle and how I overcame that struggle, and then somebody bumps into me and I look like I've been on a 3-day bender. Like how does that, you know what I mean? I'm a fraud. And so it's really just showing up as your authentic self and presenting yourself as your authentic self and showing people, look, this is who I am. Who you see online is, because a lot of these guys, they talk about that too, right? Like a Ryan will say that shit. Like a lot of people, you see people on the internet and all this stuff, but to me, like I've been around Ryan, I've had the opportunity, luckily I put myself in those rooms to spend time around him personally and say, man, bro, you're exactly the same guy that you are online. If not, you're even a little bit cooler, because sometimes online you can come, if you don't know him, he says it all the time, like I got the tattoos and I got this and I got that, and he very passionate about what he does. And then you get him in a room and you're having a conversation. Like, damn, bro, you're super humble dude. Like, like you represent everything that you say, and the same to you guys. Like I see the stuff you post and then I get to see you guys in person. And like you're always exactly the same way. And it's pretty dope, man. I love to see it. And especially, and I hate to keep bringing up the age thing, because to me, age really doesn't mean anything, but it does, because there's a maturity level. You guys are way ahead of your time. Like you're at 23, it's like you're like 20 years ahead of where a lot of people would be where you are right now with your mindset, with your business, movements, your ideas, how you're moving forward, the steps you're taking, trying to, I saw one of your posts, I think it was today or yesterday, talking about the car, but wanting to invest first and making sure you have your money put in different places and then be able to get the things that you want while you have multiple streams of income. Like 23 years old, bro. If you'd have came to me at 23 years old, I could tell you right now, I was talking about asinine shit. I was talking about women and drinking, going partying, spending money I didn't have, selling drugs. Like, this is the conversations I was having when my boys were smoking weed. We were fucking degenerates, you know what I mean? And so to look at a guy like you and the rest of you guys doing things at the level that you're doing them, it's impressive. And again, like I said before, like as crazy as it sounds, as someone who's 40, like I'm inspired. You guys inspire me to work harder. You inspire me to go harder. So, it's pretty fucking dope, man. And so with the moving company and the knocking doors now too is like another thing. So you just do that on top of it. Like you're just looking for
So
multiple streams of income at this point, or you're just trying to find your passion really? Like, what is that all about?
yeah, yeah. So, it's actually kind of funny. I really haven't said this story. I think I mentioned it once on Facebook, and this is kind of how I got involved with the whole world of sales. So right before I applied for Apex with Zach, because obviously he brought me on the team, and he was looking to build a team at that point. I was about to door knock for pest control with I don't want to say the company because I don't want to throw them under the bus,
All
but it
good.
was a pest control company. They're based out of Utah, so any context clues there might be a few. But we were supposed to go down to Houston, Texas for the summer of 2021, and I was going with my buddy, and pretty much this pest control company was a total scam. It was, not what they said they were. They didn't live up to the core values. They were frauds. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost fell for it. And thankfully, this other opportunity, I'm a big believer in God. I'm a follower of Christ, all of that stuff. I thank God that put this, opportunity in front of me to test me to see if this was something that, was really, you know, I feel like he put this in front of me to see if I was ready for the opportunity. And I feel that, it worked out. Um, but with that pest control thing, that's what really brought me into the world of business, the world of sales. And, I'm glad that I had that opportunity, that I found out that it was, fraudulent. And, this next opportunity came with Apex. But with door knocking, I'm always trying to improve my skills with talking face to face, because Apex is mostly phone sales. It's mostly over the internet. You're not really doing a lot of face to face when you're first getting involved with people, but then
Mm-hmm.
obviously the events will get connected and really build that relationship there. But with door knocking and really going out there and getting out of your comfort zone, because I hate being comfortable. I always love putting myself in positions where I'm not feeling comfortable. That's where growth happens. And that's why I always try and encourage people to get out of their comfort zone, go do something that makes you feel out of your zone. And that's what door knocking does for me. And a bunch of hailstorms have recently hit here in Texas. I don't know if you've been following it, but
I
there's
mean, I
been,
follow enough of you guys from Texas,
yeah,
so I've seen the baseball size hail pictures all the
yeah.
time. So
Yeah, and I'm a rookie when it comes to door knocking. I'm a rookie when it comes to, knowing anything about roofing, but I'm learning. I'm, actively out there studying, after hours. I'm up till, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, door knocking, studying, doing all this stuff because I want to refine my skills and I want to become the best version of myself so that my future family can, know that their dad was, they built this life for them. And I want to make sure that they're financially secure. I want them to have no worries at all, and that's what I'm working towards. That's my why.
that's what's up. What can you really say about that? I was gonna ask you, like, are you, because part of this journey, right? At the end of the day, people, especially at your age, you're still at like it's you. That's the one nice thing about being so far ahead, in my opinion, is that you can kind of pick and choose a little bit. Like you're not tied down yet. I know you got a girl, right? You got a girlfriend. So but you're not tied down. You don't have marriage, you don't have kids, you're not, that doesn't mean you're not serious about your relationship. But my point is, like, you can delve into different things. You know, you have the flexibility to try a roofing or try a moving company, or maybe sales is your thing, or running your own company is your thing. And like, a lot of times what happens, like guys like me, I didn't find what I was passionate about until later on in life. Like, I do plumbing and heating for a living, and I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot of joy I take in it, but it's like, as I'm getting older, I understand, as far as my mission and my passion in life, that's not it anymore. You know, I still do it because it brings in great finances. I love my customers. I love the camaraderie built with my team. I love all those things, and I'm not going to stop doing it. But I'm also now able to pursue my passions and stuff. So are you like kind of on, you're talking about becoming the best version of yourself. That's one part. But the other part is, are you living into your passions, or are you just kind of like navigating now to find out what that is? You know, every time you do another thing or another business, you know, you're honing in on what it is that you really want to do with your life. What is your purpose? What is your passion? What is your mission? You have any idea what that is? Is that just a work in progress?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, when I got into college back in 2018, I thought my calling was, law enforcement or anything under that umbrella of law.
Mm,
I had a really, really, I was really passionate about it, and I really thought that I was going to, pursue that, and that would be, that'd be it. But, after really diving into the world of business, not being capped by a W-2, having the freedom to earn as much as you produce, that's what I'm working towards. Whether it's here with Apex, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunities that I've had here and the stuff that I've learned here. And applying it to, my own stuff as well. I don't know what the future holds. Um, you know, I've learned so much here. I don't know if it's going to be moving. I don't know if it's going to be Apex. I don't know if it's going to be roofing, but it's going to be something under that business umbrella, definitely. And I can see myself working for myself and having a team of 20, 30, 50, 100 people. I don't know what industry that would be. It could be construction. It could be plumbing. I don't know, but it's going to be something under that business umbrella where, I'm going to be actively changing people's lives, whether they're my employees, whether they're my clients, my customers, my audience, whatever it is. I want to be like Ryan. I don't want to be Ryan, but I want to be like Ryan, where I'm, sharing my knowledge with the masses. That's what I really want to, I want to leave a legacy, not only for my family, but for future generations as well.
right. Generational wealth, generational pride, you know, in what you're doing. And you know, it's interesting you were talking about that Ryan situation. Like, it's it's funny you say that, because I say that similar. Like, I think we all do. It's not, I don't want to be him. I'm not looking to be him. I'm not looking to be a doppelganger. All I'm looking to do is like that, living in your passion and building that type of life where, you know, your kid, and I see a lot with the train, like how he teaches his kids and how he raises his kids, is it, that's the part that's generational, right? You can hand down all the money in the world. You can
Mhm.
teach a kid the business, but you can't do that without teaching them all these things young, like responsibility and, you know, all the characteristics that he teaches you guys, you know, the core values. Like, he instills all this thing all the way down his family tree, at least inside the house, you know. And it's incredible. And like, you know, I wish I had mentors like this when I was younger, but like you said, you know, I'm not really Mr. Religion, but I am someone spiritual as can be. And I do believe in, um things happening for a reason, and timing and all those things. Like, you know, you're shown these things at the right times when they're needed. Like, in my 20s, if somebody put an Apex in front of me, I wouldn't have been ready to take it on. I wouldn't know what to do with it, and I wouldn't have had the money to do it either. So it's like everything happens at the right time. But definitely trying to build that same lifestyle. I'm just, you know, 20, less than 20 years ahead. You know what I mean? So I'm late in the game, but I'm in the game, you know. And so it's cool, man. It's cool to watch. And you know, having Cade on and having Zach on and asking them the same question, like, not only what is it like working with him inside that office, what's the, not the energy, but like, besides the core values and all the things that's being instilled in you, you're basically working side by side with one of the top mentors, top coaching people in the game. And so
Mhm.
that's such a leg up on your competition. Let's just be real. Like, whatever it is that you decide to do, you're gonna have all the tools And so maybe you just speak a little bit to like what that's like, that portion of it's like having that mentorship from someone who's, in my opinion, created, because I'm a little biased because I'm in the group, but in my opinion, is the greatest mastermind group in the world. Like I've been a part of a few, and this is by far the most valuable. So maybe you can speak to that.
Definitely. So in I guess in a short phrase, it's nuts. It's definitely nuts learning from, someone of that caliber, and especially with the background that he has, going to prison a few times and having divorces, losing everything, getting it back, losing it again, getting everything back. It's definitely very interesting, learning from someone who has a totally, really opposite background from me, where I went to college and, I grew up with, you know, two parents and, I was an only child and, all this stuff. And it's definitely very interesting learning from this whole other, person and version of something that I'm trying to build towards. And he has so many golden nuggets that he speaks on every single day. We have weekly trainings for our sales team with
Mhm.
Ryan, and the amount of value that he drops in there, it's people pay $100,000 for, and
I
it's
believe it.
we get that for free. So it's definitely yeah, he teaches us a shit ton. He teaches us a shit ton. And he embodies the core values. All of us embody the core values. That's why we're here. That's why we, continually grow every single day. He constantly puts us, really in uncomfortable positions because again, that's where growth happens.
For
And
sure.
I'm grateful for it.
Yeah,
Maybe in the moment.
you're like in the fire every day, but it's the best one to be a part of because you're constantly, there's a lot of pressure, but it's good pressure and it's good knowledge and it's good teachings. And in reality, I mean, I'm sure I've never really been in sales per se, but I can imagine even with the door knocking, a lot of what you learn inside of the group is help with that. You know what I mean? Yes, it's different because it's more of a face to face. So there's overcoming that part, right? Where it's like, I gotta knock on your doors, that uncomfortable like 2 seconds. Cause I have people come to my house all the time. The
Mhm.
thing is, because I'm in these groups and I know people inside my own network do it, I still entertain the conversation, even if I'm not fully interested. I like to hear what people have to say, and I like making connections and shaking hands because there are some people that close the door right in your face. Nah, not interested, and they keep going. So there's that uncomfortable few seconds. But I'm sure, and the thing is that what I'm learning about sales, even though again I don't really sell anything. I mean, I do. We're all kind of salesmen, right? In the end of the day, but I don't like call people to sell. But there's so much value in the lessons that are learned that you can take with you throughout your life. It's not always just about sales. Yes, you're learning trainings about how to certain situations and people ask a question or people defer when you ask them a question and like how to answer those things. But then there's the other side, which is like there are life lessons ingrained in all of those lessons that you guys are being taught. And I can imagine what that's like. You take it with you every single day. And so, I didn't want to, I never want to like stop these things without realizing that there's another person in your life too, and I want to see how all that ties in too, right? Because I know you're dating somebody. Is that something that happened before Apex? Is that like a after Apex? Because I only know you that way, so that's why I'm asking from
Yeah.
that timeline. You guys go back a long way, and what's that like?
No, it's actually kind of a funny story. We've only been dating for coming up on 4 months now, but we've known each other for about 7 or 8 months, so it's relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a funny story. She's from Tulsa. Her family's from Tulsa. She grew up there, and she went to the University of Oklahoma. We have a mutual friend. She went to high school with this girl. I went to college with this girl, and we just happened to have that mutual friend there.
Mm-hmm.
And like the closer I am, I kind of slid in her DMs on Instagram and took her on a date. I played some follow up with her, and I took her on a few dates, and she's been a great companion, a great person that's pushed me, supported me, and I do the same for her. Um, she's been nothing but you know great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And so I hear, and that's another thing, like inside of your network, right? It's like we talk a lot about that too. We talk about alignment and core values and how somebody else aligns with your core values. Because, in my time, like before all this shit and before coaching groups and all that, you know, you just took a chance. You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of people end in divorce or end up in breakups. But in this, you know, in this world that you're living in, we talk so much about almost like the interview process of like, yo, this is what I'm all about. And that's another thing. You're kind of getting like a front row seat to how people operate. Like, um, what is that? Is like, this is what I'm doing in my life. I got and this, and this is the criteria I'm looking for. You know, do you fit in that sphere? You know, at the same time, as a young man, you still want to go out and experience things because you just never really know. But like, it's even early on in your life now, because of all the other things you're doing, do you see yourself, I don't want to talk about marriage, I'm just saying in general, like, what do those conversations look like? Or are you just so early on, you're just kind of taking it a day at a time, or are those conversations that you've already kind of had?
No, so I'll break that into two answers. So when it comes to, since I'm 23, I'm young. I have kids. I have friends who are still in college and who are still doing their thing. Um, it's unfortunate, but I have had to remove some people with love from my life, and because they're doing stuff that doesn't align with my mission and what I'm trying to do. My circle is really small now. I used to have a lot of friends in college when I was in my fraternity. I would used to party all the time. I'd used to drink and go out and do stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't align with that type of lifestyle anymore. It's not my forte. It's not my thing anymore. So I have removed a lot of people, again with love, from my life, and they understand that, they get it. But when it comes to my lady and her core values, she's on that same type of wave and mindset that I'm on. She's doing her thing. She's very ambitious. She's really thinking about quitting her W-2 job and getting into real estate as well. And I really want to push her. I'd train her. I'd help her. I'd help her find, a brokerage that would be, the best fit for her. And we have plenty of them in this DFW area. I can name like Pedro and Chris Greehey and, those people.
Yep, yep.
Um,
Inside the network that you already trust too.
exactly. I trust
Mm.
them and they're great people. And, going on her, she's, I think she's the one. So,
That's
she's
awesome, man. And
definitely
you
one.
know what? Like you were talking about all the, like we've talked a little bit about like spirituality and all these things. Like, you know, the thing is, man, you're what you're doing with your life already is, there's attraction there. I'm not talking about female attraction in general. Like, you're attracting what you're putting out, right? It's like input, output, as they say. And what you're putting out and you're getting back because you're putting positive energy out into the world. You're putting positive messages out into the world. You're a good human being, you know what I mean? And you have a good head on your shoulders, you got a good heart. And so what happens is you attract that same, or at least somebody that's on the same wavelength as you are. And it's not surprising to me that you would look at this person that way. You know, I mean, I haven't seen much, but I've seen some of your posts and I see how you guys, there's clearly a connection. Shit, I even thought this was going on for a couple of years just based on what I see. I mean, I haven't seen much, but what you see, and you know,
Definitely.
reading people's energy, reading people's, like I said, I'm not big with the religion, but when it comes to energy and spirituality, I feel all of it and I can see people. And so, you know, like I said, going back to my own shit, like I was such a negative person, I was attracting all the negativity in the world. But when you're a positive person and you're living a positive life and you're putting positive vibes out to the world, guess what? Positivity comes your way. Positive people come your way. You're elevating, people that want to elevate come your way. You're attracted. So it's not surprising that that's the case.
Exactly, exactly. I couldn't agree, any more than that. And we go to church all the time. We have a church down in Dallas. We go there every Sunday. We haven't been the last few weeks because we've had some things going on, but we have a church that we go to that we're regulars, and my face just brightens up whenever I see her. She brings great energy, and I can read people pretty well. I've taken a lot of NLP and PCM type of courses and you know coaches and stuff like that. And I was again going to go into law enforcement. You have to be good at reading people, reading
For
people's
sure.
emotions. So
Yeah.
she only gives off good energy, good vibes, that type of stuff.
That's what's up, man. So I always like to ask before the show, you know, ends, like what's, I know we've talked a little bit about the things you have going on. Do you have anything that you may want to share with everybody that you have coming up, or is it just all these things that you're kind of working on to try to build the life that you ultimately want in the end. Is just kind of a culmination of all the things. Do you have anything that people should look out for? Let people know where they can find you. You know what I mean? And I always post your stuff anyway, and people will be able to get you. But like, give everybody a little insight on something maybe you're working on or.
Definitely. So nothing in the foreseeable future, nothing in the next 2 to 3 months. But I think by the end of the year or maybe early 2024, I think that's when I'm probably going to launch my book. Because I have been, working on it, and I've been throwing some stuff in a Google Drive and all that stuff. Um, but for right now, I'm just putting my head down. I'm doing the work despite with, when it comes to Apex, when it comes to, trying to scale up my moving company with door knocking, I'm just doing the work. And, it's doing the work. It's not pretty, but when you actually get to see the results, a couple months down the road, you'll see. But
Yeah.
as of right now, nothing on the radar, but look out towards the end of the year and early 2024.
It's wild too, man. Like we get like in the beginning when you think about how daunting all that work is and you think it's going to take you a lot of time. But as crazy as that is, time goes by so fast, you snap your fingers like, holy crap. I think
Mm,
about Apex like in August, I'll be in there 2 years already. I
yeah.
don't even know where that 2 years went. But also in those 2 years, I have built my machine. I have done posting for at least a year and a half of that, 2 years. In the beginning, I was a slow starter. I was already using social media, but I wasn't like doing it the way we talk about doing it. And so now that, and so it's like when in the beginning, I was like, damn, this is a mission, like having to post on multiple platforms and doing all this stuff. So it's funny when you look back though and you say, "Holy shit, man, it's been a year already. I've crushed it," and it's like I'm only getting started and still have so much left to do. So, I'm proud of you, man. Honestly, and I always like these shows because I feel like it builds a little bit of a deeper relationship. Hopefully, next time we see each other in person, we've definitely embraced, but we don't really take the time to do a lot of talking. You know what I mean? Well, there's also a lot of other people there. I'm not by myself, but connecting with people and seeing your journey, man. Honestly, like I said, it's inspiring to watch all you guys, but you specifically, since you're here, like doing all this stuff and really living the life that you're pushing to live, man. It's impressive. And I can't wait to see where this all takes you, honestly, in the end.
Definitely. Thank you, man. Yeah, it was a pleasure coming on here, and I really appreciate you for, taking the time out of your day to even do this. So thank you.
Yeah, it's dope, man. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy them. I mean, I say it all the time. People, the listeners have heard me. Like, I love doing interviews. And I'm really like enjoying this, bringing on guys like yourself, who are doing all the stuff that you're doing and doing it at such a young age, man. It's honestly a blessing and it gives me hope for the future, because we're just been living in a world of craziness. But the
Yep.
reality is there are a lot of guys like you out there that have that same mentality that are pushing to be the best. And in reality, we have the type of group where we can, we all need to branch out and reach as many people as possible because when you're inside that environment, the sky's the limit. At least you feel that way. Like I feel like if I'm willing to do the work, you can literally go anywhere you want to go, and everybody inside that group's willing to help elevate. Same as guys like you. You can come in there and help a lot of people out, have conversations with everybody. So, it's super impressive, man. And again, thank you for you guys listening. You know exactly what to do. You go in there, leave me a little review, let me know how we're doing, let me know how I can make the show better. I'm always trying to bring the best content I can to you for you guys listening. Again, thank you, brother.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.